Greetings fans, friends, and family. Your Crafty Diva Cat here with another video in our Works in Progress series. This is Mates Part 1. Now Mates is a pattern that I bought online from patternsonline.com, which is a site where you can buy just patterns, download them to your computer, and print them out. It's really handy if you want to get started on a project and you don't live near a needlework store. I have to drive a little more than an hour to get to the nearest one to me, and it's great if you already have all your floss and canvas and you're getting started and you're ready to go. So Mates is the picture or the cross stitch that you have seen me hold up before in some of my black pattern tutorials and other things. And it is actually two rolls, although you can only really see one right now. It's a really beautiful pattern, all done in blacks and grays. And the pattern itself is 8 pages long, printed out on your home printer. There are a couple of good things about the way this is formatted. One is that they have the list of floss and symbols on every other page that's printed out. They show you the overlaps by printing a slight gray over the top so that you can see where it overlaps from the other section of the pattern. This is really important because it's very difficult to try and hold them up to each other and figure out where you left off stitching and where the next row begins. So I really appreciate it whenever pattern designers do that on multiple page patterns. The thing I don't like, of course, it's all in black and white, and I prefer patterns that have at least 2 colors because they're easier to read. And as you can see in my little note here, it doesn't have the section of the pattern that you're working on every page. It has it on some pages, as you can see here, where it shows which section of the pattern you're working on, but it doesn't on all the pages. So in order to make things easier on myself, so that when I was shuffling through the pages I could grab things easier, I just drew my own little graphs where it was needed to show which part of the pattern that particular paper was for. And that's it's a little inconsistent. Sometimes the graph shows up on the sheets that are full and not on the ones that are half, and sometimes it doesn't show up on the ones that are full, so that's a little inconsistent, and I would have preferred if they had that on every page. But otherwise, I quite like this pattern, and I did choose to do it on black instead of on white or beige, which is what they suggested, because I wanted to have a nice black border around the edge. And there's where I ran into a problem. I love the site everythingcrossstitch.com. I buy from them quite a bit, and I use their fabric calculator to enter in the number of stitches wide by the number of stitches high that this pattern is, and it lets you enter how big of a margin you want around the outside of your piece of work. And so I entered that I wanted 2 inches on the top, bottom, and both sides, which would give me enough room for a border and for folding it around for framing without being too much in the way. As you can see from my stitched piece, I don't have anywhere near 2 inches. I don't even have 2 squares of fabric on some of these edges. And even at the top and the bottom, where it's stitched to within 2 squares of the top of the piece of fabric, which is very tricky to do without it unraveling, I have missed a couple of rows on the top of the pattern because it just doesn't go that high. So what happened? I rechecked my calculations. I went back after I realized this was happening to see if it was my fault. I entered the same thing in. It suggested the same piece of fabric. I don't know if their calculator is off, but I would suggest not trusting online calculators for fabric and doing your own figuring. Now, how to do that is, this is 235 stitches wide. So if you're using 14 count fabric, you need to divide the 235 by the 14 to figure out how many inches you need, and then add the number of inches you want as a border on each side to your total. If I had done that, I wouldn't be having the problems that I'm having now, so to a certain extent I blame myself for that. But it's just a heads up for any of you out there who are considering using fabric calculators to figure out a piece for your next project. I do, like I said, really like the company, and I've bought from them lots of times, and they're way less expensive than buying locally here in Canada, but there is an issue with their calculator. So that is my first works in progress video for Mates. Be sure to check out the next video in this series, which will be Mates 2. And for more tips, lessons, and projects on needlework and other crafts, check out Crafty Diva Cat on Facebook and Twitter. As always, thanks for watching and happy crafting!